Again, I said. Okay, John said, I'm ready. I wound up and threw the ball of hard-packed snow at my new student, and tried not to laugh as it hit him right in the face. John blew out air and shook his head as he tried to clear the snow, wiping it from his face as he tried to concentrate. I could feel him pushing out energy, trying to form it into something solid, and as I packed more snow into my mittened hand, I wondered if the snow would ever end. It was hanging around for a while this year, and I was taking full advantage of it to train my new student. We'd been training hard since the incident at the hospital, and John was making great strides in magical theory. Theory was great. Theory is the foundation of great magic, but you had to build something on that foundation, and John was having trouble manifesting it. He was imaginative, but magic was kind of hard to bring into existence if you didn't completely believe in it. You were close, I told him, wincing as Grandpa laughed from the porch. Not even. Well, what am I doing wrong? John asked. I shrugged. Nothing that I can see. You just want it too hard, Grandpa said. You have to form it into a shield. It has to be something that'll stop things, a square or a wall. Like Green Lantern, I said suddenly. You have to make the thing that blocks or hits or whatever. Grandpa thought about it, chewing it over before finally nodding. Yeah, that makes sense. That's about how I've always done it too, though it's always a wall in my case. I usually think of it like Captain America's shield, so that it bounces things off like his does. John nodded. Good old vibranium. Yeah, give me a few seconds. He focused, and this time I could feel a change come over the energy output. Before, it had been like throwing a snowball through mist or fog, but now it felt like it was taking shape, gaining density, and as I threw the snowball, it actually slowed considerably before tapping against his arm lightly. Good job, kid, Grandpa said. You almost had it. Did I? John asked, sounding surprised. It still hit me, so I wasn't sure. You were very close, I told him. I saw it slow down. A little more concentration, and you'd have had it for sure. John wiped a hand across his brow, despite the cold. Man, this is tough. Lots of concentration. Nothing worth having is easy. That's the lesson I had to teach this knucklehead here. I laughed. Oh yeah, I was hopeless there for a while. It took real combat before I got my stuff together. It was nice when I didn't get sliced in half and instead had something to take the hit for me. Yeah, John said, you're braver than I am then. That's not a chance I would want to take. Oh, piffle, Grandpa said, holding up the cat he'd been whittling and looking at it with an appraising eye. I knew you'd perform when the chips were down. Well, I'm glad you did, I told him, bending down to pack another snowball, because I wasn't so sure. Well, I saw you do it before, so it wasn't a big surprise. That took me back a little as I sat back, the snow crunching into my glove. No, before then I had made little shields, but nothing like that. John concentrated as I got ready to throw, and this one definitely slowed down before it hit his foot instead of his face. He looked down and then looked up at me questioningly, but I was more interested in whatever Grandpa was talking about. Well, you probably wouldn't remember, he confided, picking up a new piece of wood as he looked upon the cat with satisfaction. It was quite a while ago. You would have been about, Grandpa figured up with his hand on his chin, 5, maybe 6. I let the snow fall out of my glove. 6? Grandpa, I just learned that I could do this about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago. Grandpa smiled. Just because you didn't know you could do it doesn't mean you didn't do it, he said with a wink. Sometimes kids do things they don't mean to do, and it's how we learn. In this case, you did it because your cousin Patrick was bothering you. You remember Patrick, right? I rolled my eyes. Don't remind me. If I never see Patrick again, it'll be too soon. Patrick was Aunt Kay and Uncle Frank's son, and his father had spent most of my teens apologizing for him. Uncle Frank, my mom's brother, works offshore on an oil rig. Uncle Frank makes the kind of money that makes people sign contracts with the devil. He isn't some roughneck oil jockey either. He handles some sort of process or procedure on the platform that puts his pay rate into a different bracket. That being said, Uncle Frank used to get in trouble all the time, from what he told us, for going down and mingling with the regular Joes. Uncle Frank oiled his way through college to learn whatever process he did that made him the big bucks, but he never forgot where he came from. He's a great guy. I love Uncle Frank, but he refuses to retire, and if he isn't out on the rig somewhere, then he's at home, asleep. To be fair, if I had to live with my Aunt Kay, I would never come home either. Aunt Kay was someone Uncle Frank fell hard for that turned out to be the worst thing for him. Aunt Kay does little besides sit at home, spend my uncle's money, and complain on Facebook. She's a Karen, there's no better way to put it, and she spent most of her marriage spoiling my cousin Patrick. He's the oldest of the four, and he's the worst. He's my aunt's golden child, her eternal baby boy, and I think it broke her heart when he moved to Australia to do something. He's some kind of geologist or something, works with seismic activity, and he's working for a research company near Sydney. This means I haven't seen him in nearly 10 years. Plane fare is expensive, and I'm fine with that. His siblings, Terry, Margaret, and Kathy, are also pretty rotten, but they're generally better when they're not around their mother. I don't know how Uncle Frank puts up with it, but he has come to me many times and apologized for something that Patrick has done. Well, if you guys want to take a break... Grandpa paused and coughed loudly as he spit into the snow. Come have some cider, and I'll tell you about it. I looked at John, and he nodded. We were both pretty cold, and some hot cider would be just the thing. So we moved inside, got our cider, and after a glass clink and a long sip, Grandpa began. It was about 20 years ago, and your grandma and I had a house full. Your grandma had agreed to take all 7 grandchildren for the weekend, which I could have told her was a terrible idea. We had been keeping you and your brother and your sister for a week, and your Aunt Kay felt like her kids were being left out. I suppose because she asked if they could stay for the weekend with their cousins. Your grandmother said of course, because she's always been too good to folks, and we settled all of you in for the weekend. It was 4 boys in one room and 3 girls in the other, but, of course, Patrick had to have somewhere special to sleep. He couldn't share space with that many other people. He needed his own space, and your grandmother, the kind soul that she was, put him in the craft room. I swear I spent the whole weekend biting my tongue with that boy. His brother got along just fine with you and your brother, of course, and the 3 of you were good to sleep in the same room. Patrick, though, was never happy with anything. He needed special meals and special time with Grandma, and on and on and on. I think he kind of sensed that I had nothing for him, because the 2 of us were never as close as he and your grandmother. Well, anyway, Saturday morning dawned cold and wet, and by 10 the rain had become a late winter snow. You kids were ecstatic, getting dressed in all your warm clothes and going out to play in the flurries. It built up quick, too. By noon, we had at least 4 inches, and you kids had built a little army of snowmen and a couple of snow forts, and some of your younger cousins were sledding in the down below. Patrick had, of course, taken to throwing snowballs at people when they least expected it. It seemed he had decided that this was the most fun thing to do, and it was extra fun to throw them at you, you being the closest in age to him. You were getting pretty upset about it, as I remember. You and Matthew had just about had enough of it, and I think his sister had decided to help out too, as the three of you ganged up on him and pinned him down under a hail of snowballs. I was watching from the window, drinking coffee and reading as I kept my fool self inside, and I chuckled as he gave ground and the three of you kept up the heat. Kathy broke first, then Matthew, and pretty soon it was just you and Patrick hurling snow at each other. You were hunkered down behind a hill of snow, your gloves soaked as you threw snowball after snowball, and Patrick was starting to get tired. You could tell that he was enjoying himself, but his arm was getting tired, and he was getting cold, and he was starting to wish that he could stop, but he didn't want to lose. I didn't see when he put the pine cone in the snowball, but I saw it when it hit you in the shoulder. I could tell it hurt. How could it not? And I was up and on my way to put a stop to this pretty quickly. No one was going to mistreat someone in my house, not over something like snowballs. I heard you holler as he hit you with another one, and as I came to the back porch, the very one we are sitting on right now, he was cocked and lobbing another one before I could tell him to stop. "Stop it!" you shrilled in your little kid voice, and as you yelled, something shimmered between the two of you. I felt it. I know he felt it, and it stopped the snowball flat. Whatever you had pushed out wasn't done, though. It shook the tree over him hard enough to nearly cover Patrick in snow, and he came running inside, crying and shaking snow off himself. We looked at each other, and I could tell you were afraid you'd get in trouble for something. When I laughed, I could tell you were relieved, and I asked what had happened. You said you didn't know, but that Patrick was cheating by throwing pine cones at you. I told you it looked like he'd gotten what he deserved, and you agreed. I think that was when I knew that you had something special in you, something that Patrick would never understand. I did, though. I understood what it was, and I begged your mother to let me teach you, as my grandma had taught me. I sat digesting that and thinking about some conversations I might have caught one side of over the phone when no one thought I was looking. Why didn't she? Grandpa shrugged. I guess she didn't want to fill your head with nonsense. Believe it or not, your mom tried to learn when she was very small. She saw some of the things I did, and she tried, but I think she lacked belief. She'd seen me do them and thought that made them easy. When she couldn't do them, she got frustrated and thought it was all a trick and make-believe. Your mother is not terribly imaginative, and she's never been patient. Your mother's good at many things. She's great with numbers. She's an excellent actuary. She's good at talking to people, and she's discovered that she's good at selling the houses that she still occasionally sells, but she doesn't stick with anything that she cannot do quickly. She has no patience for learning, something that held her back in school a little, and simply has no time for something that she can't grasp immediately. The magic never worked for her, so she thought it was a trick. She wouldn't let you try because she didn't want you to have the same results. But I also think that just maybe she didn't want it to work for you when it hadn't worked for her. I snorted. I wonder why she sent me here to watch you then. Grandpa shrugged, coughed, and spit into the snow. I don't think she remembered that I even offered. She simply didn't want to come and do it herself, so she sent you. And now you know the secrets of the universe. It was my turn to snort. The universe within the Appalachian countryside, maybe. Grandpa waggled a finger, coughing again before spitting. Don't knock it, kid. There's a lot of universe in that forest. The more I learn, the more I see, the more I realize the old man is right. You're still here. Thanks for stopping by. Dr. Plague here. Always a pleasure to see all my new and old viewers coming by for another one of my spooky tales. If you'd like to support the show, you can always take part in one of our channel offers through Fume or Aura, or you can just click on another video when they come up. I'd really appreciate it. For our newer viewers, we also have lots of playlists and other things if you'd like to get caught up. I know some of my series have been going on for quite a while. If you'd like to get my latest book, there's a link down below that'll take you to my Amazon page. Towesey Homestead just came out, so if that's something you'd like to get your hands on, go ahead and have a look down there. If you'd like a signed copy, you can go ahead and email me from my email address on the site, and I'll get with you about shipping information and ship you a signed copy. If you'd like to support the channel in a more monetary fashion, we also have membership through YouTube, and we've got a Patreon that you can get the information for in the description. We have lots of tiers and everything to suit your needs. Patrons that support on the $10 tier, that's our Ghostly Reader tier, get a book anytime I write one, signed and on their doorstep. As you may have noticed, there's a list of patrons and members on the screen, and I'd like to personally thank every one of them for taking a hand in the future of this channel. Well, that's enough for tonight. Dr. Plague, signing off. Have a wonderful evening.